Hello and welcome to Classical Chats. This is going to be our first video edition. And for those of
Yes.
you watching us for the first time, we also have a podcast, Classical Chats with Hayden and Liz. But we are the podcast and now YouTube channel that talks all things from the concert hall to the screen.
And shit on everything in between. I'm Hayden.
I'm Liz. We normally don't look like this,
No, we normally look like two garbage humans.
but
We are dressed up today, and Liz has donned the tiara because today we are talking about The Crown, season 4. So I'm a big fan of The Crown. Liz is a
yes,
big fan of The Crown. We've been watching it religiously, and today season 4 dropped,
yes,
and we're going to talk about it.
yeah.
We're going to
So
talk about it.
each week we'll be uploading a new episode to just talk about another episode. So this week we're talking about episode 1, which was entitled Gold Stick. So how do we, Hayden, would you like to lead this, or would you like me to kind of put in my two
Yeah,
thoughts
I'll.
first?
Well, I can start.
Yeah.
So, and this is like a nice jump cut. So, Liz, what were your initial thoughts? So, it's called Gold Stick, as you already said.
Yeah.
What were some of your initial thoughts of the episode? Going in, what did you think? What were some of your
So
thoughts?
so going in, I knew that this season was most of the issues that were going to be happening were with Diana and with Margaret
Mm-hmm.
Thatcher. So seeing
Mm-hmm.
Margaret Thatcher come in, I'm just like, oh, solid, good, awesome. This is going to be fun kind of rivalries I'm going to see coming up. But it opened on this really regal parade, and I'm just like, yay, the cinematography, it's back, it's gorgeous, I love it. And then part of me, the Ireland shots. So there's a big focus
Yes.
on the IRA, the
Yes.
Irish Republican Army, and they're in fact a huge plot point of this episode. So spoiler alert already, we will be talking
Yes.
about plot points that should go without saying, but spoiler alert, we will be talking about plot points. But all this Ireland footage, all these shots that are based in Ireland and the protests and everything, I in my notes have, is this stock footage, or did they just shoot this in a way to make it look like stock footage?
No, so I can chime in here. That's real footage. That's
Okay,
real
that's what I
footage
thought.
that they
That's
that
what I
they
thought.
took. Yes. And what was happening in the beginning, I appreciated the dichotomy of trooping the color. So that's what was
Yes.
happening was trooping the color, a very big ceremony that happens every year. And I appreciated the dichotomy of it with these huge protests, and I want to say that that was voiceover. That wasn't original audio. It didn't feel like original audio to
Yeah.
me, but that was
It definitely,
actual stock footage of
yeah.
the IRA and the Irish revolts and all of that. But my first initial thought in this whole episode was, wow, we are moving very fast.
Yeah.
This episode did not waste any time.
No.
I want to point out, normally like the inner season episodes usually sit between like 40 minutes, so that way that the bookends are like an hour
Hmm.
long.
Yeah.
This was under an hour, and I was a little bit like
Yeah.
intrigued by it. But my first initial thought over this entire episode, walking in, I was excited. I was happy to come back to these characters. um but overall, just wow, this moved very fast.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. Um,
I
so
really liked I really liked the so it's right after the trooping the color, and that sort of felt like, okay, here's the world we're back in, here's the area where it's 1979. And
mhm.
then there's this lunch happened, and it was basically like, okay, here's all the characters again. You see the queen, you see the Duke of
Yes.
Edinburgh, Princess Anne, Princess Margaret, the Queen Mother, Lord Mountbatten. You get reintroduced to everybody really quick, and they're ping-ponging back and forth. Charles is off somewhere, and there's also, you then subsequently get introduced to Margaret Thatcher,
Yeah.
and he's going to see Lady Sarah Spencer,
Hmm.
and then you get introduced to Lady Diana Spencer. So within the first like 10 minutes, it moved fast. It
Yeah.
introduced everybody, and that was one of the notes I had. I was like, "Oh, this lunch is nice, but wow, we are
Yeah.
moving very fast."
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. Also the scene where Diana and Charles meet is so cute. It is so
That.
stinking cute. Like,
Mm-hmm.
ugh. So, obviously, for those of you who are up on your British history, things don't end well for them in their
Yes.
relationship. We all know that they get married. We all know that that's going to happen. We all know that they're going to get divorced. That's just part of recent
Mm-hmm.
history. Not recent, but you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just like, this is such a cute, meet cute. Like, and it was so
It
adorably
was.
it was so adorably written. And so it was just like, oh, yes.
One thing I find really weird is, so at this time Diana's father was already the Earl Spencer. He was no longer Viscount Althorp. He was the Earl Spencer, and Sarah and Diana were not referred to as, Lady Sarah and Lady Diana. They were just called by their first names. I wonder if that was an implicit choice, because I know in the research that I've done on my own free time in this time period, they in the books I have, you can see behind me, they even refer to Lady Sarah Spencer, Lady Diana Spencer. They use their titles that were
Yeah.
given to them when their father assumed the earldom.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing I thought was really interesting, that they explicitly didn't use in
Yeah.
this first episode. They did not use her title.
Yeah.
I just found that kind of interesting.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong. As Philip is meeting Diana for the first time, it's because he's going to hang out with Sarah, and Sarah might be kind of on his list of women that he's courting ish to see if he's going to marry.
Yes, yes. So at this
Okay.
time, we're in the late 70s. This opens in 79,
Yeah.
or it's supposed to open in 79.
Yeah.
It's like late 78, 79. And yes, so Prince Charles was a bachelor at the time.
Oh, yeah.
He had a reputation in books that I've read, being this sort of tumultuous bachelor. He would go in between from this girl to this girl, and he really couldn't find the right one because he was so hung up on Camilla.
Oh,
He
yeah.
really loved Camilla, and she
Well,
married Andrew Parker Bowles.
we all see how that turned out.
Oh yes, oh yes.
Uh,
History, hindsight's always 2020.
yep.
But so at this time he was dating Lady Sarah.
Yeah.
They've gone to a couple balls, they had hung out together, and if my memory is correct, in the biography that I read about Queen Elizabeth, they all thought Lady Sarah was the one.
Mm,
They all were like, "Oh my goodness!" And the Spencer family is a incredibly powerful family in the British aristocracy. They have ties to not only the king and the monarchy, outside of their title, but they also have ties to George Washington and the founding
mm,
of America. So the Spencer family in and of itself is incredibly powerful and
yeah.
very prestigious. They're a very prestigious family,
Yeah.
and so it understands why Charles would be drawn to them. They
Mm,
were relatively, the only scandal, if my memory's right, that happened was when uh, Diana's parents divorced when she was
mm,
a child, and then
yeah.
he remarried. That was,
Yeah.
I think, the really big scandal that happened. But they were in the House of Lords. They were might have been in the House of Lords for a while. But yeah, Charles was dating Sarah, but then Sarah, married someone else,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
he had already had a couple meet cutes with Diana, and then he settled on her at the pressure of the family. They went,
Yeah.
"Oh my goodness, she checks all the boxes. We seem to get along with her.
Yeah.
Go for her."
Yeah. 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 So I'm wondering if maybe because of that, the fact that he's dating her sister at the time, that kind of slight informality that he feels, because I mean, heck, he's the prince, he can do what he wants. Screw whatever the important calling everybody by their titles when it's just you're walking through a
Yeah,
house and you're just waiting. Um, that's why I feel maybe he didn't refer to them as lady,
yeah.
but I mean, that's just an assumption. I'm not a writer on this show. or a historian.
Yeah,
That's
neither
fair.
am I. Neither am I.
But yeah.
I the house they got to stand in for Althorpe looked
Mhm.
incredible. That was a great house they picked.
Yes.
When I first
Yes.
saw it, I first thought, is this actually Althorpe? It wasn't, but it
Mm.
looked very similar to it in this first episode. I uh very much love the scenery. They really love. I follow
Yeah.
one of the houses. No one of the castles that they use. They use it for Windsor. It's
Mm.
the seat of the Duke and Duchess of Rutland, I believe, and it's Belvedere Castle. They
Okay.
used it a lot in the second season,
Hmm.
and it did have a couple appearances in the third. But that castle's beautiful, and we got to see a little bit of Lancaster House, but this first episode was very much not in England. You're in
Yeah.
Iceland, you're in Scotland,
Yeah.
they spend a lot of time outside London,
Yes.
and I've one of the big things I wrote down that I really loved is that the royal family actually feels like a family now. Like they actually feel like, you know, Anne and oh, hold on, let me see. When Prince Philip and Princess Anne had their little meeting when she's having
Hmm.
doubts about um, jumping, it was nice to see their
Yeah.
relationship again. But
Yeah.
it feels like a family again,
Well, and to me,
like just a real family. Period.
Queen Elizabeth seems happy.
Yes,
What the?
yes. This is
She
one of the
seems
first times
happy.
we.
She seems
Mhm.
happy, genuinely happy, and it was nice to see that. And I'm just like, is she smiling on purpose?
I know. I know. It's like what Olivia Colman, and you had to capture because we see her very stoic and
Oh
very
yeah.
reserved, and just to see her just happy and gallivanting about. And I did appreciate where when they're drive. I think it was this episode where they're driving up and you
Yes.
see the Queen and Prince Philip, and they're having this loving moment. You had Princess Anne and
Her
her
husband
husband, and they're just bickering and
fighting.
fighting, and then it goes to the Queen Mother and Princess Margaret, and they're both asleep. That was
I
awesome
love
comedic
that.
timing.
Oh gosh, I have a note about that in my, where is it exactly? Um, the shots of them driving in the cars are so accurate, LOL.
Yes, that is yes, very much. Very, very much.
Yeah.
So the episode opens and we get a lot of introduction. And
Yeah.
we've already talked that it's basically, it feels as if it's okay, we need to reintroduce you to these characters because it's been a year and a half
Yeah.
or a little bit under a year that you've spent away from them. And this is their, last season. So we need to get you reacclimated to them. And then
The
the
last season for
big
these
point,
actors. Last season for
yeah,
these
last season
actors.
for these
Not the show.
actors, they get a completely new. Yeah, not the show. The show has two more seasons. This is the last batch with these characters, with these actors. And the big punchline of this episode is we see the death of Lord Mountbatten.
Yeah.
And this was very tragic, very sad, but I thought handled very well. So
Yeah.
you see the episode opens and there's a lot of talk with Charles. The big focus this episode, one of the side plots, is Charles needs to get settled down. He needs to
Yeah.
be settled. He needs to Anne is settled. um Charles, if he's going to be the heir and actually start working more for the firm, he needs to be settled. He needs to have a woman that the people will love, that will understand her duty, and will go forth and do what she needs to do. And I thought that this first episode, Charles was an asshole to Lord Mountbatten, but also justified. Though it was
Yeah.
justified, but he was still
Yeah.
such an asshole.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It
I don't want to step on your toes.
No, you're good. Definitely, I agree with that. And I feel like we'll lead into this conversation, but Lord Mountbatten ends up sending a letter to Charles, and the music changed. And this is literally what I have. Why do I feel like something bad is going to happen with the letter being sent to Charles? And who is the guy in the gold car? The sound of gunshots from the hunting Philip is doing is adding to my anxiety. The
Yes.
boat exploded. I knew something bad was going to happen. I'm just like
So
writing my
this
notes.
was handled. This was handled really well. This I thought was shot so beautifully. So
It
you have
was.
they keep cutting to Charles fly fishing,
Mhm.
Philip off doing some type of bird shooting. You then have the Queen and Princess Anne stalking a deer, and then you have Lord Mountbatten going off to go lobster fishing. So
Yes.
you have, and this whole tension begins, and the orchestra shifts, and it like the colors go real bleak, and it keeps sort of rotating, and you begin to think, okay, what is this shot? What is this? And then you see this gold car, and you see people you've never seen before. They do not talk. You only
No.
see like their reflections in the review mirror. You don't hear them, you don't see them really. And it keeps rotating in between. And you see, Charles catching a fish and, making sure it's dead by hitting it against a
Mhm.
rock. You see Philip shoot, I believe it's a pheasant. He's
Sounds
shooting some
about
type
right.
of winged animal that flies. I want to say it's a
Larger.
pheasant, but it's also, yeah, but he's off shooting, and you see the dog go, and you see this pile of dead ones. You see them shoot a deer, and it falls. You see them take the cage out, and you see them throw. Oh, I don't think they're only allowed to take males, so they're like, oh, this is a female. They throw it back, and as they throw it back, it's a wide shot under the water, and then the boat just explodes,
Yeah.
and the Lord Mountbatten and the two young boys are dead, and the other three members on board the boat are just really severely injured.
Yeah.
And of course, the two big punchlines in this episode is we have a new prime minister that
Mhm.
you can feel the tension between the
Mhm.
Queen and Margaret Thatcher, which Gillian Anderson's Margaret Thatcher. I
Oh my
mean,
God. Oh my
oh my
God. It's
goodness.
spot on.
It is wonderful. I've seen like recordings and seen Margaret Thatcher in, archival footage, and then
Yeah.
seeing her as Margaret Thatcher. I was like,
It's
oh,
scary.
wow, she's terrifying. I do not want to be in the same room as her. But
No.
you can feel, this tension punchline, storyline. You can feel where the the queen's trying to be very amiable with her, trying to be friendly, like, oh, I want to try to get to know you, and Margaret Thatcher is just cold. Like,
Mhm.
we need to discuss business. I did find it really weird that a woman in such a high position as her didn't approve of women having high positions. Did you catch that?
Yeah, I got that. I definitely I remember that part of me, I mean, coming from a female perspective, especially if you're thinking about that time, it's almost like sometimes women would slip through the cracks because of a quota or something like that. So the last thing that you want is it's fine if for some reason a man is able to tear me down, but another woman to get up to my level and then potentially replace me, it's a threat.
Yes.
And it's more of an even threat as opposed to I can just blame it on this if this happens.
Hmm. So you
I,
have this like weird. I remember like when I wrote in my notes, just this is really uncomfortable. Like they're meeting. Margaret is just the prime minister is just she's so standoffish, and the queen's trying. She's trying to keep it warm,
I loved the
and
I always guess people's cabinets, so this is who I'm thinking you probably chose.
I
And it
know it was so
was so
fun. It was so
endearing.
And I was like, "Oh, you're having fun." It's like you can really feel the queen's like happy. She feels really happy. She feels,
Yeah.
her marriage is settled. She has all her kids now, and they're grown. Um, but yeah, there's this beginning. They laid a good found. I think that scene was very important because it lays the foundation for what is going to come.
Yeah.
Because while Margaret Thatcher had a very high respect for the role of sovereign, they did not have a great relationship.
No.
They so I thought that scene was handled very. It gave a lot of foreshadowing. Just Margaret not wanting to sort of lean into the fun, and the queen being like, ah. I thought that was very
Yeah.
poignant
Yeah.
and important. But we have the death of Lord Mountbatten,
Yeah.
and everybody's heartbroken, everybody's hurt, and I very much understand and respect that because
Yeah.
he did have a very important role. He helped orchestrate, the marriage of Philip to the
Yeah.
queen. He was pivotal in kind of bringing together Charles and Camilla, but very much separating them.
Yes.
He was a really good big role model, and we saw that role model in previous seasons,
Yeah.
especially in season 2 when Charles was really little. And
Yeah.
we see them hanging out a lot, and that's where Philip begins to step in. So I thought, so those watching, there's a key scene. Charles comes back from Iceland, and hold on, the fact that he had a 500-page report of what he wanted for his funeral, I just
500
wrote
pages.
why. I just wrote
I
why so many pages.
I wrote 500 pages of instructions for a funeral. God damn. Just,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I, so for those of you who know me, have listened to us before, I've mentioned before, my father has passed away. And so I've been at the planning of a funeral. 500 pages? Dear God, no.
Yeah, like no. And
No.
I've been privy to some funeral planning with some of my grandparents passing away. But when I saw there's, a medium shot of Philip at this table with why doesn't he turn on another light? Why does he just have We're gonna get into some of the questionable choices they did for shooting in a minute. We're gonna finish talking about the plot of the episode
Yeah.
first. But he's sitting there, and I just see these huge stack of papers. He's like sorting out and getting through, and Charles comes in, and he is talking about all 500 pages, and they begin to have this poignant conversation
Yeah.
where he talks about Dickie really picked up where my father wasn't there, and when my father died, he was really there when I needed him. And then as you got older, and I, kind of the summation of that is when I stopped needing him, he really took up and really was there when you needed someone. And you were sort of like another son he never had. And it was this kind of, they started to have this really vulnerable moment. And
Mm-hmm.
then Charles goes in, and he was like a father I never had. And then all of a sudden, the lights get turned off, and Philip goes, "No, you have a father. I'm your father." And you could see, Josh O'Connor as Charles just shut down. And
Yeah.
I thought that was very
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah.
That they began to have this kind of tense, vulnerable moment where
Yeah.
he's talking about how, out of everything, he wants you to talk, not me.
Yeah. Well, and here's what I had to say about it. God damn Philip's fragile masculinity. So his brother, so Lord Mountbatten cared about his son so much that he actually stepped up to be his father figure. Like,
Mhm.
suck it up, princess. You didn't actually act like a father for him. So the fact that he's saying that he was like a father to me doesn't need to affect you in any way. So deal with it. But
And that's what we've been presented. We've been
yes.
presented that in the show that Philip was very distant. And there's
Yeah.
this, of course, famous episode that the royal family has gone on record, specifically the queen, that says this isn't right. The famous episode in season 2 when Philip goes to away from school, and he's coming back, and they're in this plane, and Charles just yells, not Charles, Philip just yells at him, and you
Yeah.
can see Charles kind of shut down.
Yeah.
And um what we're being presented is this relationship that really isn't there. In season 3, when Charles is older and he goes to Wales, and there really isn't, we're getting a read that there isn't a relationship. So your comments are very apropos. We've
Yeah.
been presented that they don't have a relationship,
Yeah.
that he's closer to Lord Mountbatten. So
Yeah.
in history, I know that as time has progressed, they've sort of warmed and they've gotten more of a relationship, but Philip has always been this kind of weird stoic character. So
Yeah.
that reaction doesn't come as a surprise, but also like, wow. Oh,
Yeah.
do we have a visitor?
We have a visitor. Come here,
I was
baby.
like, you're backing up. Do we have a visitor?
Hi. Hi, sweetie.
Hi, Rocky. Hi.
You making an appearance? Yeah. So this is my puppy Rocky. He's an old man, but we still refer to him as a puppy. He's
Hmm.
cute.
He's the mascot of the podcast.
Yes. So we'll just keep him on my lap. We can just keep going.
So your observation is very much apropos. It's very accurate.
Yeah.
Just we're being presented that you guys don't have a relationship. So, basically, what's the thesis? Like, what's going on? Like,
Yeah.
he really took him on, he was being groomed to be the king by someone who was very close to a lot of monarchs. So, yeah, that conversation was very, but I liked that we got the beginnings of vulnerability.
Yes.
And then all of
Yeah.
a sudden it was just that, well, and a father I never had, and just immediately gone. I was like, oh
Oh yeah.
wow, we have vulnerability, and now we've gone.
Yeah. Yeah. But
So then the
also,
funeral.
yeah.
Oh,
Funeral
you go. You
happens.
go.
Yeah. Funeral
Yeah, the
happens.
funeral happens,
And
and
then,
I thought I loved the crossfade where he's going up the stairs, kind of defeated,
mm-hmm.
and then it crossfades to the actual funeral itself, and the funeral happens, very dark, very sad, and then I thought it was kind of weird this, where she's throwing the dirt on the coffin, to start, okay, ashes to ashes, dust to
Yeah.
dust, and all that stuff. But they explicitly chose, I thought this was just a weird choice where, you see, the dirt covers up the queen. The second batch of dirt covers up Philip. And we just see Charles slowly shrinking away. And then, so I was like, that was a weird choice, but okay. Um, and then there's an immediate change of tone
Oh yes.
to where we're with Anne at the Olympic qualifying for
Yeah.
equestrian jumping,
Yeah.
which I thought was an abrupt tone shift.
It was. It was, but at the same time, it's hard to come out of a funeral setting. If you're not going to
Yes.
immediately go into a scene about grieving or something like that, it's hard to come out of one of those
Yeah,
scenes.
I was like, oh wow. But then we run into another meet cute with Charles and Diana,
Yeah.
and I very much love how Diana's dressing very innocently. They're playing with color and shape with her in this naiveness. And Charles dead ass stops in the middle of traffic.
Yeah.
I wrote in my notes, "Why did you stop in traffic?" I would be screaming at him, but it was
For
important.
that, yeah, it was important, but I was wondering the same thing, but you could see in one of the shots that there was traffic stopped in front of him. It was a very
Mhm.
brief second. There was traffic stopped in front of him, but they continued the conversation on after the traffic in front of them had moved, which is why you started to hear the horns honking.
Yeah, and
So
I was like, "Why? What's going on? What's going on?" And then we see another interaction with Charles and Diana, and then the tone of the episode begins to shift
mhm.
to where we have, and it this first episode sets up this dichotomy with, well, what will come with Margaret Thatcher and Lady Diana.
Mhm.
Because one, can we talk about Lady Diana's flat for a minute?
Can we
Can we
talk about
talk?
the
Can we?
Can we talk about the
I
fact
love
that
it.
she's listening to Blondie as Charles calls?
Right? Yes, Charles calls, and they all are like, "The Prince of Wales is on
Charles
the
is on the
phone."
phone.
She's gobsmacked. I did find it really weird. So he called. I don't know if this happened in reality, but I do know
Mhm.
that he asked Sarah about Diana.
Yeah.
But she's like, "Oh, Joyce," and he's like, he's basically like an ex calling you. Hey, congrats on your engagement. Congrats on the wedding. And I was like, okay, but and then he just dead ass asks her, "Hey, so
My
your
sister asked her.
sister?
Can I
Hey,
say
hey,
your
your
sister?
sister." Like, I appreciate his forthwith to ask, "Hi, I want to, hey, do I have, is it cool? Can I
Yeah.
start talking to your sister?" So I appreciate that, but just the timing was all like, I was like, why is this phone call happening? Why is this, why is this
Mhm.
happening?
Yeah. No.
And
That's fine.
then the episode ends with her talking to Charles, and then it ends.
Mhm.
So the first episode, while wrapped in the tragedy, the very real assassination of Lord Mountbatten,
Yeah.
we get reintroduced to the characters very quickly. I
Mhm.
thought the first half hour of this episode went by really quickly. I thought he could have
Yeah.
maybe like stretched some scenes out.
Yeah.
Um, the family feels more settled. We get introduced to the underlying tension with Queen and Prime Minister,
Hmm.
and the big topic is Charles needs to be settled.
Yeah.
So we finally go into him dating and picking a wife. I do appreciate though that you know us as a viewer, we know history. We know Camilla
Yeah.
hasn't gone, never went away. So I
She never
appreciate that there's the
will.
occasional cutback. Yeah, yeah, I appreciate the occasional cutbacks to
Yeah.
her. I thought that was fun. And
Yeah.
just like, oh, I appreciate this sort of symbolism of her
Hmm.
never really going away. But
Yeah.
yeah, the episode ends. What were some of your final thoughts? So after watching the episode, what were your final thoughts?
I love Diana so much. She is so
Yes.
adorable. And it's just like, I mean, she was only 18. She was such
Mhm.
a pure human being. Um, she worked as not only a cleaner for her sister, she was basically like her sister's maid, kind of. Not in the traditional like Downton Abbey sense of the word maid, but she's like her sister's maid, but also works part-time as a not kindergarten teacher, but like kindergarten teacher's assistant. And
The shots with her and the kids, I
it's
thought was
so
so just just poignant. You
pure,
get we get this
so
we get this
pure.
sense they're really presenting this sense of naivete. This
Yeah.
young, she's very young. She's very in it and she cares. And
Yeah.
so I thought that those shots at the end where we see her reading to kids and helping out, I thought those were
Mhm.
very poignant, but I very much agree.
Yeah.
She's just this pure innocent soul.
We lost her far too soon.
We did. We lost her far too soon. Now, I have some questionable shots
Yeah.
though.
Go for it.
So there's a lot of establishing shots. I
Hmm.
felt in some ways that we were in a James Cameron film because, as in, i.e. Titanic, there's a lot of establishing shots. We need to
Yeah.
show where we are. And I understand that they're trying to immerse us in this world.
Yeah.
It's very much like it's basically the introductory paragraph to a large essay. We're presenting a lot of points, we're
Hmm.
reintroducing you to this world, but there were some I kind of was like, why is this shot here? Why is this shot just of a field? Like
Hmm.
what is this? And you're in this castle. There were some specifically in the scene with Philip and Charles. He's in what looks to be like a dining room
Hmm.
or like a drawing room, some type of official room,
Drawing
and there's
room,
a
I would say.
big hearth with a fire in it, and that is seemingly all the light in this room.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's going over. He doesn't have glasses on, and he's reading official papers of his adoptive father.
Yeah.
Yeah, looking over his funeral plans, and I was like, what is this? Like you're in Balmoral. What is this?
Yeah.
Sidebar, they're at Balmoral. Balmoral is one of my favorite royal estates. So when I saw that they were going to be there, I was like, yes, I love
Yeah.
Balmoral. So, and just the pacing of this episode, that was one of the big critique. Like the editing was kind of weird. The
Mm.
pacing was really weird. It was kind of hard at some point. Like it only took me, as you said, when we finally saw him get on the boat, we saw all the shooting. I was like, oh,
Hmm.
something's gonna happen here.
Something bad's
Like
gonna happen. Yeah.
some of the choices for me were a little weird.
Hmm.
But the big thing that was really weird was not in the show at all. There's a new music. Someone new is doing
Yeah.
the music.
Yep.
I had to pause and kind of take a moment. So Hans Zimmer used to do the music for the show,
Hmm.
and now it's by a gentleman, Martin Phipps, I believe it's pronounced Martin Phipps.
I think so. Yeah.
And I could clearly tell the score was a little
Yeah.
bit unsettling to me. What did you think?
It was definitely different. It was definitely
Mm-hmm.
different. Um, the one thing that I will say though, the fact that I could feel my anxiety starting to rise with the letter from Philip, and it was specifically from the music and the sound editing perspective. It wasn't what we're used to from the first three seasons, and obviously Hans Zimmer is a very, very, very talented composer. Um, but the fact that I could feel tension rising in me from that moment because of the music, I still have to give the guy credit. It was
Oh yeah,
different.
I'm giving him
It
credit.
wasn't perfection, but it'll be interesting to see more throughout the season if there are moments where it's just like, I just wanted this. But
Mm-hmm. The only thing I thought that was really weird, so I agree, the opening, I thought the music was kind of a little weird. So
mhm,
I thought, in terms of music, the highlight of this episode was that series of vignettes
yeah,
and that scene. The music, it was handled with such care, and it was just building. And the
mhm,
music and the editing, that I thought was handled very well.
yes,
But the ending, I even made a point. I was like, what is this? The ending, the music, I understand what their intent was, because
mhm,
he's talking to Lady Sarah, he's talking about Diana, and we know what happens,
mhm,
and they're trying to. It felt like they were trying to put that in with the music,
mhm,
and it's one of the big things that I think makes a good movie soundtrack is you don't fully realize it's there. You
yeah,
just sort of let your body and you let your senses come over to it. I noticed the music right away.
yeah.
I was like, what did you feel about the ending? The music just stood out to me.
To me, it didn't stand out. So
Okay.
to me, it really didn't stand out. The most that the music stood out to me was the fact that Blondie was playing.
Yes.
I loved that. I love that little just they were playing "Call Me" as she
Hmm.
got the call
I was like,
from.
wow, wow, way. I was like, great, great for this one. I'm more meaning.
But
I'm more meaning. That was
yeah,
sort of like, wow, nail on the head there.
yeah,
I'm sort of
but
more meaning just in the phone call before
yeah,
Diana gets a phone call. This sort of like
yeah,
tension. That just it didn't feel. I noticed it. That was the big
yeah,
thing. I noticed it. It was like this, and I was like, I want to be paying attention to this awkward as fuck conversation.
yeah,
And I even when I was like, I was like, I'm noticing this, and this
yeah,
doesn't feel to me. It didn't feel gel,
yeah,
but that's just my opinion.
yeah, yeah. To me, I just didn't notice it. So on rewatching, I might pay a little bit more attention to it. But the first time, I was focused in on their conversation, and
Mm.
I'll be honest, I don't know these people and the background and the history as much as you do.
Yes.
I will openly admit that. I was watching this and I'm like, Sarah, I know it's her sister. I'm assuming that this is Diana. I'm looking it up just in case. So, to me, I'm a
Yes.
little bit more focused on because I don't know the full history. I know what happens. I know the end plot, but I don't know all of the little details leading into it. So to me,
Yes.
I was checking back in with that. So that's probably why I overlooked that.
Which is completely fine. It's just, yeah, this is royal history is one of my hobbies. So, me knowing
A little
more
bit.
doesn't shock a little bit of kind of a little bit, yeah.
A little bit.
Me knowing, yeah, that's no shocker to
Yeah.
anybody. Um but final thoughts. What are your
Final
thoughts after this
thoughts.
first episode? Final thoughts.
Final thoughts. Loving the cinematography. Can't wait to see more of Diana. Can't wait for the wedding. Can't wait to see the tension between Thatcher and the Queen.
I agree. I'm ready to go to the races.
Yes.
That's this episode felt very much like an introductory paragraph to a very large essay.
Yeah.
And while great, I thought the tone was handled very well. Even if there
Mhm.
was abrupt shifts, I agree. They're like, how do we get out of this corner?
Yeah.
You just got to turn. So I thought, it sort of book ended with this, IRA stuff, which I thought was
Hmm.
very poignant and very
Yes,
powerful.
very.
The tone, I like that the IRA threat was still there the entire time, even though
Hmm.
they're trying to push the characters on. I'm excited for what's to come. This really
Yes.
left me excited for the rest of the season.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Well,
So, those
sound
were
off in
our
the comments
thoughts.
below.
Yeah.
Yes, sound off in the comments below. If you like this and you like spending time with us, subscribe, hit the notification bell, comment down below, and if you like us and want to spend more time with us, head over to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and check out our podcast, Classical Chats. We just finished up a retrospective on Disney and Disney and music. So if you want to spend more time with us, come, friends. We have
Yes,
fun.
absolutely. Absolutely. So, we will sign off, but we will see you next time. So,
See you next time.
bye.
Bye. Stay musical.